if you just give yourself that, it's like, okay, let me give myself three real attempts at this thing. I think you'll be able to learn 99% of things. So in research, it was very much we have all this technology and what can we do with it? It was like we start with the tool and then we go try to find a problem. But in business, the big lesson I learned was you can't do that. You have to start with the problem. You got to start with what's going to have the biggest impact on the business, and then you work backwards and try to find, the simplest solution, the simplest technology to solve that problem. Right, so I had about 12 months of expenses saved up. And I was like, you know what? What the hell? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go out on my own. Worst case scenario, I completely fail and I come back to Toyota, or I just go get another data science job. It's not like there's going to be a shortage of people with my skill set right now, especially with AI booming. You can't you can't make it your life's mission to fulfill other people's dreams and other people's goals. You have to figure out what your own dreams and your own goals are and to pursue those. Then I wrote a blog called Five AI Projects You Can Build This Weekend. That blog went viral, and then in like 1 week, 250 people signed up for the wait list. And I was like, oh shit, this never happened before. People actually want something that I'm trying to sell. Revenue was never going above like $3,000 a month. Like I hit a ceiling. And that's because I was working on something that wasn't the bottleneck for my business. The bottleneck wasn't my lack of technical skills. I actually had more than enough technical skill. The bottleneck was my lack of non-technical skills. So my inability to sell, my inability to craft an offer, my inability to identify problems and diagnose them with solutions, my inability to write a landing page, to write copy, to write newsletters, like all these like sales and marketing things and non-technical skills that are required as an entrepreneur. I was a complete noob at all of them. So I feel like the two easiest entry points for entrepreneurship are freelancing and content creation. So I'm Shah. I'm a AI educator, so I teach people AI. I have a YouTube channel, and then I also do education, AI education in other ways. So I have a 6 week class that I teach right now called the AI Builders Bootcamp, and I also do private trainings for corporations. And excited to be here. So thanks for inviting me on, Warren.
Thanks so much for being here, Shaw. I'm really excited to speak with you today. I've been following along your journey for about a year or two, and I would really like to get more details behind, I guess, your career, how it started. I know you studied physics, you have a PhD in physics, so maybe we could start there and get to work our way to where you are now.
Yeah, so I guess in high school I realized physics was very interesting to me. I guess I always just wanted to understand how the world worked, and physics just felt like the best path for doing that. And so I went and did my undergraduate degree and studied physics, and I was never the smartest kid in the class. And so I actually had like a lot of insecurity about, you know, just my abilities of like understanding things and concepts and things like that. But I, stumbled out. I was able to graduate and they gave me a degree. So I went out into the world and kind of working, kind of after my, working after college. I wasn't like working at a big company or anything like that. I was working at my dad's car dealership. So it was a small business. And, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Um, but
What
that
was
was a great
your, sorry, what was your, I guess, role in that car
role at the
dealership?
company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's small business. So naturally, it's small businesses, multiple people wear multiple hats. So I was wearing many different hats. So I came in, I was doing like inventory stuff. And then I was the youngest guy, so they had me doing like IT stuff. And then I got us on a CRM. So I was doing like lead management and sales kind of stuff, and then marketing stuff. So it was just like all sorts of things. I was going to auction, I was buying cars sometimes. So I was doing
Sounds
like
like a
all
really
sorts of things.
sounds like a really good experience, actually.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was a good flavor of what entrepreneurship is like the reality of business and things like that. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I still wasn't satisfied with my understanding of the world. I had this piece of paper that said, "You understand physics," but I didn't feel like I did. And so I decided to go back to grad school to get my master's in physics. So I went in and I feel like it was a good opportunity to like make up for a lot of my failures in undergrad because I was just like kind of barely getting by as an undergrad student, and I didn't want to recapitulate that in grad school again. It was basically the same topics, but much harder now because it's graduate school level. And so I took like school very seriously, and this is where I kind of unlocked this like growth mindset. Like before, uh, maybe before I would think like, oh, either quantum mechanics makes sense or it doesn't make sense, or either you're good at physics or bad at physics or whatever it might be. But I didn't believe that in grad school. I just worked really hard and I would just keep reviewing the material until it made sense. And I went from just being like a, typical average student to actually making pretty good grades and, sometimes making the best scores in the class. And so I think that really ignited something of like, it unlocked something that you don't have to be a genius to learn things, and like these things that might be very scary and daunting to you at one point, like quantum mechanics, like don't even say that word around people or they'll fall asleep, or they'll get scared and run away. Um, but you're capable of learning these things. You just have to be willing to, pursue
Hmm.
it and kind of be curious about it. And so that kind of got me into grad school, and then that was like a major thing for me there. And then I also discovered this thing called research in grad school. So we were applying things like, writing Python code, and we were training machine learning models, and we were applying it to these different like, applied physics projects. And it was like really interesting to me. I didn't understand the concept of research until I got into grad school. And it was really fun because I got to really pursue my curiosity, work on interesting projects, work on practical things that I felt like was making an impact. Uh, and that kind of got me to like stick around a little longer. So I was just going to do a master's, but then after 3 semesters, I was like, I'll stick around and do a PhD. The work we're doing is really interesting. So I stuck around for another 2.5 years, and I got my PhD. And then I went on to the corporate world. But it
Dang,
seems like you
that's
wanted to say
awesome.
something.
Yeah. So two things. So like the process of learning, I found that too, that like it's kind of intimidating because you kind of points where you feel like I don't know if I can learn this, but if
Hmm.
you stick through, eventually somehow something happens and things will click.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people they're maybe don't learn that. Maybe they never stick with the thing long enough to
Right,
learn
right, right.
this lesson. So like, do you have
Yeah.
any tips for someone who maybe like came across a concept that they found too intimidating, they gave up, and they maybe feel like now they adopted a belief that they're not capable of learning this
Right.
thing?
So I feel like in school it's a lot easier because it's a well-structured syllabus. Like thousands, millions of people have gone through this program and have learned this thing too. So you're capable of doing it as well. And so what I would do in grad school is that I would actually do the homework. I would read the textbook. I didn't read the textbook in college. I definitely didn't read the textbook in high school. But in grad school, I was like, okay, let me actually read the textbook. And lo and behold, it actually made a difference. So when I would come to lecture, it would actually make sense. And I was in a position to ask questions on things that didn't make sense. And usually that would help. Like if I read the textbook and went to lecture, it would click. But sometimes it wouldn't click. And so if that happened, I would go back and read the textbook and then do the problems until it clicked. And usually, even if you don't get it on your, like, I think what happens is you don't get it on the first try and you're like, oh, this is impossible. But you'd be surprised on how much you can learn on the second try and the third try. And it's very rare that it takes like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tries to get something. Usually, if you're serious about it, even if you don't get it on the first try, you'll probably get it on the second try. If you don't get it on the second try, you'll probably get it on the third try. And if you just give yourself that, it's like, okay, let me give myself 3 real attempts at this thing. I think you'll be able to learn 99% of things. But if you're not as like a school context, I feel like there are really 4 ways to learn. The first way is by consuming content. And I think that's what most people do most of the time. It's like watching a YouTube video, watching a lecture, reading a blog post, reading a textbook, whatever it is. And if you can get something just like that, that's great. You've already got some background knowledge in it. So you just read the definition, you do the Google search, and it makes sense. Or you do the ChatGPT conversation, it makes sense. Um, but then There's a second type of way to learn, which I think is through mentorship and through example. So talk to someone who has the real world context, who's been there and done that, and just being able to ask them questions and like shadow them and see what they're doing, kind of see the real world application, like getting those examples of applying the concepts to the real world and to things that you care about. The third way to learn is by doing the thing yourself. So if I'm trying to learn how to code, you know, I can watch YouTube videos, that's fine. I can kind of talk to a mentor and get like example coding projects and things like that. Like that's fine too. But ultimately, it's not until I get my hands on the keyboard that things start to really click and you realize how many gaps you really had in your understanding. And then the final way to learn, which really kind of cements all of this stuff, is by teaching it. So taking the things that you think you understand and explaining it to someone that maybe is like 1 to 2 steps behind you. And I feel like if you're able to go through all four of these steps, like you're going to have a very solid understanding of whatever it is you're trying to learn. So that's the recipe that I've applied to like I would say ever since grad school, just like learning the thing, doing the thing, teaching the thing, and just doing that over and over again.
Definitely. I think that's a great systematic way to learn things really well. So if you're having trouble learning, I think that is a really valuable kind of framework to use. So the other thing I was wondering about is what type of research did you get into
Yeah.
in your PhD?
So it was very multidisciplinary. We were doing like multi-scale physics. So basically, that means like studying things on the very small scale to the very big scale. So what that meant for us was going all the way down to like in situ things. So at the human scale, measuring what's going on in the human body, measuring brain activity, heart activity, eye tracking, measuring the environmental factors in the context. So like temperature, pressure, but also the chemical composition, also the air quality and things like that. So we're having like a real rich, um, like capturing a rich representation of the local context, and all the way up to like satellite imagery, and then like different scales in between. So we're like, it's like this multi-scale system and really, to understand this complexity, we don't have great physical models that can explain the data well. And so that's why we turn to machine learning to help us create these empirical models of the world, like empirical models to capture the relationship between air quality and the human body. So, how is air quality affecting our cognitive performance? How is air quality affecting our physical performance? Other things we're working on is like the kind of the interaction between the psychological situation and the physiological response of the body. And so that was a one study we were measuring these special forces operators going through these live fire training scenarios. We had them kitted up with all these biometrics, and they were had to go into this like, basically a live fire training situation, and we're faced with very complex decisions. These like shoot, don't shoot, go, no go decisions. And we were capturing the brain activity, tracking their pupil size, tracking their heart rate, and things like that. And then we had expert graders giving them a score on their performance, and then we're trying to find clues on the relationships between how well they performed in these high stress situations and then what was going on in their body. And so there were actually like many projects that we worked on. So it was definitely a very fun time in grad school. But yeah, those are just a couple of the projects I did.
That sounds really cool. Yeah. So I guess it sounds like it was pretty focused on a variety of systems of different scales and their effect on the human body.
Yeah,
You
I
said?
would say it's like the three scales of the world. So it's like physics, physiology, and psychology, and then kind of measuring their interaction and using machine learning to help us do that. Kind of analyzing it in a data-driven way as opposed to like first principles.
Really cool. So I guess this was kind of like a great, maybe your introduction or when you really started getting into data science too.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like when I was doing like real data science outside, toy projects you do in a classroom or something like that. So like applying it to real world data, which was super informative. And that was what eventually kind of led me into my corporate role. So once I graduated, I went and worked at Toyota as a data scientist, and that work was actually much simpler than my graduate work. We were just doing a credit risk analysis. So basically, if you give someone money, what's the probability that they don't pay you back? And so, uh, training data-driven models to make that prediction. So it was much simpler, much easier to wrap your head around. But what that really taught me is a different way of applying technology to the real world. So in research, it was very much we have all this technology and what can we do with it? It was like we start with the tool and then we go try to find a problem. But in business, the big lesson I learned was you can't do that. You have to start with the problem. You got to start with what's going to have the biggest impact on the business, and then you work backwards and try to find, the simplest solution, the simplest technology to solve that problem. So that was like a big mindset shift for me.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And then, so I did that for about a year. And then there was, a lot going on. I feel like, just given my past, half my family are entrepreneurs. They have their own business. Like my dad has his car business and things like that. So I've always had that entrepreneurial itch. And so there was that at play. And then also ChatGPT had come out, and it seemed like all the kids were outside having fun and playing, and I'm just stuck inside the cubicle, and I'm just like watching them have fun. And so I was like, I want to have fun too. And so after a year in that role, I had built up some runway. So I had about 12 months of expenses saved up. And I was like, you know what? What the hell? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go out on my own. Worst case scenario, I completely fail and I come back to Toyota, or I just go get another data science job. It's not like there's going to be a shortage of, people with my skill set right now, especially with AI booming. So it really felt like a no risk thing. We don't have kids, like me and my fiance. So it just seemed like the perfect opportunity to
For
do
sure.
it. So
So
yeah, go ahead.
when you made that decision, did you announce it to your whole family, just your fiance, or like? Because I think the hardest part about making that decision is the reaction actually of others, and
Oh,
you
okay.
lay out a vision, and then other people start to chime in and be like, "I don't think that's going to work out," and then you have
Yeah,
to either like agree with them or say, "No, I
right.
disagree." It can be tough.
Yeah, everyone's situation is different, and for a lot of people, that uh, peer pressure, that family pressure, that social pressure is very significant, and everyone has different relationships in their lives. Lucky for me that like my family was very supportive. Like again, like half my family are entrepreneurs, and I also feel like a lot of people they aspire to be entrepreneurs. They want, I don't know, they kind of at some point in their life wanted to do something, wanted to start a business or whatever it is. So they're a lot of times they're actually very supportive of people and entrepreneurs. I guess uh, be just to be pragmatic about it, I did have that 12 months of runway. So it wasn't like I'm just gonna take a leap with hope and a prayer and just like wish for the best. Um, So I did have like, I had a cushion, and I think at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's my life. So it's just like, it's not your life. I have to live with it. You're going to be dead when I'm in my 80s, looking back at all the regrets of my life. So at the end of the day, I think that, you can't live your life for other people, or you can't you can't make it your life's mission to fulfill other people's dreams and other people's goals. You have to figure out what your own dreams and your own goals are, and to pursue those. Because at the end of the day, and like at the end of your life, you're the one who has to live with it. I mean, I guess that's just the way I see it. But I do feel that uh, the highest purpose in life, I guess at the same time, is serving others. So even though maybe you're not fulfilling your parents' dreams or whatever it might be, I'm going to fulfill my own dreams. But usually the most rewarding and the most fulfilling work is the one where you're helping other people, you're serving other people. So, I think it eventually will come back around, and they'll also be happy at the end of the day.
Good point. Keep it in perspective. You might be, in your parents' eyes, doing something wrong, but you have a vision of doing something right for a larger group of people. So,
Right. And then once they see that impact that you're having, they're going to be like, Oh yeah, I knew you would do it. You could do it the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, totally agree with that. It's kind of a really tough thing to do to learn to live your life on your terms, even though it sounds pretty
Right,
obvious and straightforward, because the people around you's um, I guess ideas and thoughts on what you're doing is really impactful. So it could be
right,
tough
right.
to kind of stick with your guns. But at the end of the day, if you have your runway, then hey, it's you're gonna deal with the consequences and you're gonna learn. And that's the
Yeah,
only way I think to really uh, live a good life is to learn your lessons yourself. So
yeah.
you can make better decisions going forward.
I completely agree.
But yeah, so you quit your job at Toyota and you had 12 months of runway and like you had a lot of ideas. So I know this because I watched your series. I think that you were writing content on Medium and you're getting like a lot of traction there. And then you also kind of had been freelancing on Upwork and
Right.
elsewhere. So I guess you had those two things going for you and that kind of
Yeah,
gave
so
you some confidence.
yeah, so that's what the beginning stages were. So in grad school, I guess to rewind a little bit, I had also started posting YouTube videos, writing blog posts on Medium, and dabbling with freelance work. So I also like this whole time where I'm going on this main quest of grad school, graduating, going to Toyota, I had these side hustles going and learning a lot in those kind of in that work, kind of unlocking this concept that, oh, the only way to like getting a job isn't the only way to make money. Like I'm capable of creating value and money appearing in my bank account. I can write words on a page, I can write words on my computer, and then money will appear on my bank account, like through writing blog posts or whatever it is. So that was like a big unlock. So I had that confidence going because I had made money on my own through these side hustles. And so I felt like, okay, let me just scale this up and I'll be able to make like a full-time income from it. Uh, of course, it was much harder than I expected. And I think the hardest part isn't necessarily just like making the money, but it's making money doing something that you enjoy doing. Because like if you're doing work that you don't enjoy, you might as well like get a job, you know? So like what's the point of starting a business that you don't enjoy, showing up to every day? So finding that balance of something that I was good at, plus something that people wanted, plus something I enjoyed doing was something that took a lot of trial and error to finally get right. But yeah, I was trying like content creation and consulting. That was like my first crack at it. It's like, okay, I'm going to make content and then I'll let people book discovery calls with me and I'll try to turn those discovery calls into contracts. And that was actually working. I was getting traction there. But what I realized in doing consulting work is that I just don't enjoy this work that much. It's not fulfilling to me. And really, the thought experiment I did is like, what does success look like for a consultant? Like if I went down this path of consulting, what is if you take this variable of success and you slide it to infinity as a consultant, what does it look like? Well, that looks like Deloitte, McKinsey, PwC, like these big consulting firms. And to me, like I just didn't resonate with that vision for my life. And I didn't like the people that I've met that have come from that world, it's not like I see them and I'm like, wow, that's exactly who I want to be when I'm older. So I just felt like there were just like a few signals that was just telling me this isn't the right path and I should try a different path. And so, like, after 8 months, I started to shift my focus and I eventually landed on education because that was something I had the skills for, something I enjoyed doing, and that's something that people needed. But then the challenge became like, okay, well, what do I sell? So I had my YouTube channel, which was making like maybe $1,000 a month just through like ads, like YouTube ads. Then I had my Medium blog, which is also making like maybe like $1,000 a month through just their partners program. And then these like random contracts would like fall out of the sky. But like what really shifted my thinking is that one person who had watched a YouTube video was a director at some mid-sized enterprise, and he was like, "Hey, Shaw, can you come do machine learning training for our team?" I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that before. Like before, the only way to like sell services was consulting. So whether it was like building something for a company or it was just like giving them like strategic guidance on what to build and how to build a specific project or whatever it was. I had never considered being an educator, being a trainer for a company. So that really like unlocked my mind. So I was like, okay, what are the different ways this can look? So I like threw out like 5 or 6 different AI education offers, like AI for IT professionals, like a 2-day workshop, like a 90-minute workshop, 2-week boot camp, 6-week launch your AI product, like one-on-one mentorship, one-on-one training kind of situation. So I tried all these different things, but the one that finally worked was something I called the AI Builders Boot Camp, which was like a 6-week cohort-based uh, AI boot camp. And I feel like it's it's a modality that's on the rise now, this kind of cohort-based learning. I feel like people have realized that the Udemy style learning isn't like super effective, but like learning with a group of peers in like a more traditional classroom setting uh, is uh, is just more impactful. It's like more valuable. It works. It's more effective. So so when I did this like I made a landing page for this 6-week boot camp. I was like, okay, let me just try this. Here's the syllabus. Let me just throw it out there and just like see what the what the response is. And so this was what I was doing. Like I was basically trying to validate these different AI education offers by trying to sell them first. I would put together like a landing page or a brief description, and then I'd either like reach out to people one on one, or I would like share it on my socials and see what the response was. And my goal was to just see, like, okay, are people willing to pay for this or not? So that 6-week boot camp, I made the landing page on a platform called Maven, and then I wrote a blog called 5 AI Projects You Can Build This Weekend. That blog went viral, and then in like one week, 250 people signed up for the wait list. And I was like, oh shit, this never happened before. People actually want something that I'm trying to sell. And so that turned into 40 signups, which was awesome, and that was my first that was like the first offer I made that actually got some kind of traction. So like leading up to that point, maybe I was making like 1 to 3 grand a month, just with whatever the hell I was doing, like making content, doing these random contracts with companies or whatever it was. But that was the first month where I made not just like $10,000, so like matching my Toyota salary, but I felt like I had control over my revenue. It wasn't just like falling out of the sky. So I felt like there's like a real predictable way I can make real money. And so ever since then, I've been doing those AI cohorts.
It's really empowering to feel that you have control over your income and you can do it in a way that you enjoy and it's sustainable. And I think a lot of people are looking for that. So, one big thing about, I guess, entrepreneurship is that your skill set and your revenue maybe don't go together. So,
Mm,
like in that beginning when you were at 1 or 3K a month, like you mentioned, you were making content, you were trying all these different things, and your skill set was building and compounding, but your revenue maybe wasn't keeping up. And
right.
then there was a point where you kind of had like a shift and you tried the right thing at the right time and you put it all together and you're able to increase your income really quickly. So,
Yeah.
could we go back and talk about maybe your skill set as it developed on that same journey rather
Yeah.
than your revenue?
So the mistake I made is that I was probably just doing a lot of unnecessary things. So I like had a podcast. I was making videos about whatever. It wasn't very strategic. I was entertaining basically any money making opportunity through consulting. And so I was just doing a lot of, I was expending a lot of effort and not getting a whole lot of value, like capturing a lot of value. And I feel like One of the traps I fell into is that I was so comfortable developing technical skills. So that's what I had done for most of my career, and the pattern was if you learn more technical skills, you'll make more money because you can go from being just someone who knows nothing to being a research assistant, and then you can go from being a research assistant to a data scientist, and then you can go from like a data scientist to I don't know, like to someone who is like a lead data scientist or whatever it is. And the path was just learning more technical skills was the journey. And so when I left, I just kind of continued that pattern of, okay, let me just like dive deep into large language models and AI applications and AI engineering. Let me dive into the technical stuff and let me make educational content about it. But my revenue was never going above like $3,000 a month. Like I hit a ceiling. And that's because I was working on something that wasn't the bottleneck for my business. The bottleneck wasn't my lack of technical skills. I actually had more than enough technical skill. The bottleneck was my lack of non-technical skills. So my inability to sell, my inability to craft an offer, my inability to identify problems and diagnose them with solutions, my inability to write a landing page, to write copy, to write newsletters, like all these like sales and marketing things and non-technical skills that are required as an entrepreneur. I was a complete noob at all of them. And so it wasn't until like it was probably 1 year after I left my job at Toyota that I decided like I need to learn these skills. And so I would just learn by trial and error. So I tried to come up with an idea. And this was also something I did wrong, but basically I would start with the product idea. It's like, okay, I'm going to do AI engineering for IT professionals or whatever it is. That's the offer. And then I would reach out to IT people in my LinkedIn network and I'd say, hey, would you sign up for this course? Um, and so that was I was doing the right things in that I was learning how to do one-on like cold outreach, or I guess like one-on-one outreach. I was learning how to like craft an offer and like talk to people and things like that. But the big mistake I made is I was starting with some solution and I wasn't starting with a problem, and I definitely wasn't starting with a customer. I was just like making random guesses and like throwing it against the wall, throwing it against the market, and seeing what the response was. So I guess it was better than nothing, but there's a more effective way of doing it, which is like my approach now, is just think of a specific person that you feel like you can help like name a specific problem that they're having and then like brainstorm ways you can solve that problem. And then one like that's going to be a more refined approach at turning your skills and your expertise into an offer that is actually valuable to people. And so instead of starting with the solution, it's to start with the customer and their problems and then brainstorm solutions based on that instead of just brainstorming solutions like out of the ether, like out of your ass. So I feel like it's just like this iterative game of just like doing it over and over again, making a lot of mistakes, um, and then just, I'm still learning. So even though
So
I've come a long way over the past year.
no, there's a lot of insight here. So um, I've noticed, yeah, like reaching out to people is something that you kind of have to do, and you need to get insight. So you start with like a person in mind, a customer profile that you want to service, and then you start like, I guess what would be the next step after that? So it's a big step to think of a certain type of person, because then you can develop a list of people on LinkedIn or
Yeah.
some other platform, and you can get a lot of similar people and reach out to them and start to. That could be the start of you learning about what issues they have, and I
Yeah,
guess
yeah, yeah.
you want to connect that to your current skill set. So with you, it was obviously AI or data science, coding. So
Mhm.
like you have your person in mind, you have your skill set, and then you're trying to connect the dot of you to that person. How can you provide them value?
Right, right.
So you reach out to them and like, how do you go about getting them to even uh, help you connect the dot? I guess.
Yeah, so I'll give a specific example to help it make it more concrete. So let's say I want to help. non-technical aspiring founders build their first AI MVP or something like that. So basically, build their build their MVP without hiring an engineer. Like that's the kind of like the loose idea I have. And so the starting place is finding people who are not coders, but they want to build some kind of AI application. And then doing 5 to 10 interviews where I'm talking to them about their life, not talking to them about my product ideas, talking to them about their lives and the problems that they have. So it's like, why do you even bother like building this thing? Like, why is learning AI important to you? Like, what does this allow you to do that you can't do now? Or like, when was the last time you felt completely lost, uh, trying to code something with Claude Code, like trying to vibe code something or whatever it is. So like as you have more conversations, you start to pick out the patterns, and usually talking to 5 to 10 people, you'll be able to find the really big problems. And then based on that, you can start crafting offers. So, it just depends on where your entry point is. Like if you already have a pretty good understanding of the problem because it's one of your own problems, or you know people that are personally suffering from this problem, maybe you can just start with the solution idea. But if you're starting from scratch, I think just having some rough idea of a profile and some rough idea of the problem space that you're trying to solve, and then having these open-ended conversations with them and just kind of seeing where that goes. Like, having this like open mind, doing this exploratory research. And so there's a really good book I recommend. It's called The Mom Test. And so it's all about how to talk to customers when obviously they just want to lie to you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And it's called The Mom Test because it teaches you how to ask questions and how to have conversations to validate business ideas or insightful, to learn valuable insights about building a business. Even if you're talking to your mom who loves you and cares about you and doesn't want to hurt your feelings and thinks everything you do is a great idea. And so that's kind of like how I like approach these conversations now. Um, and then once you do have a concrete idea and it makes sense, the next step is to try to sell it, to validate it. So the simplest way I've done this is you just write a landing page that has a headline, has a short description of the offer, and a call to action. Whether that call to action is a newslet like a waitlist sign up, or that call to action is a buy now, or that call to action is a 15-minute discovery call or whatever it is, you want that call to action to be some kind of commitment. The viewer of the page has to give you something of value to them. They have to give you their email, they have to give you their time, they have to give you your money. And based on the conversion rates you're seeing on that landing page, so if like you have, let's say you're trying to do waitlist signups for an AI course or something like that. If you do it and you get like 1,000 people to go to the page, but only like 10 people sign up, for the wait list, that's a terrible idea. That's a 1% conversion rate. But if you have 1,000 people visit the website, but 500 people sign up, or even 400 or 300 people sign up, that's a pretty strong signal. 30% conversion rate, I think that's a pretty good sign that this is a good idea. Anything below 30%, I think you're better off trying a different opportunity. Uh, you know, 50% would be amazing. Then 80% is like, you need to do this right now kind of thing. But use those signals. And, this is where I feel like my scientific training is helpful. It's like, because as an entrepreneur, you're really just running experiments and gathering data, testing hypotheses, um, and really testing your assumptions against the real world. And I guess this is why I like entrepreneurship because it's helping me refine my understanding of the world, my model of the world, which is what motivated me back in high school to pursue physics. And now that's kind of carried me into this like business context too.
Yeah, I think that resonates a lot with me. Refining your understanding of the world, understanding how the world works, I think is probably the most exciting thing you could do. Just because the better you understand it, the better decisions you can make, the cooler experiences you can have. I think it's really fascinating thing to concern yourself with, and there's a lot of different angles to approach it. It's not just physics, there's economics, there's all these different subjects that give you a lens to the world, and
Mm.
to try to combine them all together, it's really cool. Um, but going back to, I guess once you you reached out to someone, one question I have is like, how do you reach out to that person um, in a way to get, I don't know if it's a phone call or like a video call like
Yeah.
this or just some questions. How do you reach out to them in a way that doesn't like that explains to them what you're doing, so and that maybe that like entices them to want to do it and give
Yeah.
you their time. And then the other thing is, once you come up with your landing page, are you plugging that to those people you spoke with in the
Right.
chat, or are you plugging it in your videos, or is it a
Yeah.
combination?
So there are multiple ways to do this. So, and I've done a few different ways, so I'll speak to that. So when I was like one of my first ideas was a 45-minute like AI training, super low ticket. It was a terrible idea, but it was like $15 hour uh workshop on like AI engineering basics, like LLM basics, for like a non-technical audience. And so basically what I did is I had a very short DM template, and it was like, hey, um, I'm exploring this workshop idea, and I would love your honest feedback. Here's the title, the timing, and the price. And then I
So,
asked,
I guess, really quick to interject, this is a list of people that already follow you somewhere, or is this a list that you reached out to
so
directly?
I actually started with the template, like the DM template. So I wrote this template, and then so I had the title, the duration, the price, and then the call to action, or the question was, is this something you would pay for? And then that was it. So I had this template, and then my next step was, okay, let me get a list of 100 people to reach out to and to send them this DM, basically. And I went to LinkedIn, and so I went to LinkedIn, and then I did like different, uh, yeah, like sort on different things. Actually, I think it was the first offer was. Um, it was basically LLM essentials for data professionals. I think that's what it was. Because I feel like that was where I was coming from. I was a data scientist, and even though I was very familiar with machine learning, I knew nothing about large language models. And so I wanted to close that gap for other data professionals. And so what I did is I just looked for all the data scientists and data analysts and even ML engineers in my network, and I made a spreadsheet with 100 names, and I just reached out to all of them, and then I logged their response. So like a lot of people didn't respond. Most people said no, but then some percentage of people said yes. Um, but I don't remember the numbers, but like that first offer, it didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't. I didn't get enough yeses for me to move forward. So maybe it was just like, maybe 10 to 15% said yes or something like that. And then I went on to the next offer from there.
Something that stands out to me that I wasn't so aware of is that, so like I might have been confused. Like, um, once I have an offer, reach out to 100 people. I'd be like, all right, now time to reach out to all of them again until we do it like 8 times or something. But
Mm,
I think that maybe it might be better to just do it once. Say, all right, this offer didn't really get a good reception.
yeah,
Let me try
exactly.
something different.
Yeah, so the metrics to track are like cohort-based metrics, like conversion metrics. And so this comes from a book called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And so he talks about the importance of tracking cohort-based metrics. So you don't want to just track like signups or waitlist signups or purchases or revenue and things like that. You want to track conversion rates and like kind of revenue per click and things like that, because that gives you a nice scaled metric. Like that gives you a metric that's normally distributed as opposed to one that has it's like a Pareto distribution, and things kind of get wonky when you have these like fat tail things, like revenue or page views or signups or whatever it is. But if you only look at conversion rates, they typically have a normal distribution, so they're like a more informative signal. And so For me, the like 30% conversion rate is a pretty good cutoff. So if I reach out to someone or like a landing page sign up or something like that, if I can get 30% of people to convert, that's a pretty good sign. Of course, if it's like a buy now, maybe that comes down to like 5% or something like that. And it depends on the offer. So of course this can get more complicated. But if we're just talking about like reaching out to someone and asking them, would you pay for this for like a relatively low ticket offer, or asking someone for their email for a wait list, I think 30% is a good baseline to shoot for. But you're not necessarily trying to sell anything at that point. At that point, you're really trying to gather data. You're trying to just get a like sample the population and see what percentage of people are actually interested in this. And so that's what I was doing at that point. So that's what it looked like for the DMs. For the wait list, like for the AI Built This Bootcamp, so this was a different flavor of it. Instead of doing one-on-one outreach, what I did is I wrote the landing page on Maven. So I had the syllabus, it had the price, it had the timing. Actually, no, there wasn't timing. And I don't think there was a price either. So I just had the landing page and the syllabus. And then like it was 6 weeks and all that kind of stuff. For that, I shared it on a blog post, I shared it on a YouTube video, and I shared it 3 times on LinkedIn. And so that's kind of like instead of doing the one-to-one outreach, you're doing the one-to-many outreach. And the call to action there is here's a landing page. People go to the landing page, and then you track the cohort-based metrics there. So you compare the number of page views to the number of waitlist signups. And so if that's above 30%, then that's good. I guess I wasn't as sophisticated then, but I think I just got lucky. So I was like, oh, 250 people, that's enough people. Like that's enough signups. I was tracking signups, not like cohort-based metrics. So like, let me move forward with this. And luckily, I was able to get like that 20% conversion rate, like of the wait list to actually signing up for the first cohort. And so that was a really strong signal. Um, But I guess one of the things I didn't see coming is that because I had grown an audience and people have been following me for like I guess 4 years on YouTube or maybe like a few years on YouTube, there was a lot of potential energy. Like there was a lot of value I had given to people and they had never given something back in return. So there was like a lot of, people were ready to buy something. It's like one way to think about it. And so when I came out with this first offer, people were like, "Oh, Shah, that guy who taught me all this stuff about AI, he has a 6-week course. I'm going to sign up for it." So it was like this huge release of potential energy. So the first cohort was like I got $10,000 in revenue for that first one. But then the second cohort, it like dropped in half. It went down to 5,000. And that's because it was a buildup of a lot of energy that I had accumulated over the past few years through my YouTube videos. And then once I released that, it was like now you have to get like a new set of customers in 2 months. You know what I mean? And then so then that kind of became a different game. But I think now we're starting to get a little too complicated. Like we're talking about too many things.
It's all right. I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah. So like, you're this is all kind of assuming that you have some sort of audience that you're building. I guess maybe
Right.
your outlook is build an audience first, and then once you get some content, grow some sort of following over time. Use that as an, I guess, use that as your first step, and then from there you're building offers for them. So
Well, it really depends. It depends on the path you want to go down. So that's just been my journey. But I will say in retrospect, building an audience first may not be the best approach for a lot of people. So audiences work really well for educational offers. So if you're making educational content, it makes a lot of sense to have an educational offer as like the upsell. You know, what I mean, you grow an audience on YouTube or wherever, and then you sell some kind of course or ebook or a regular book, or like a masterclass or whatever it is. So that's a really natural funnel that works well. But if you're trying to sell a SaaS app, that's like one of the worst things you can do because, and I think that's why I've been struggling for the last 2 products that I've put out there, is that I've grown an audience, but these aren't necessarily people that want to buy my product, these are people who are trying to learn AI. So when I came out with my YouTube to blog converter, it was like crickets. I mean, I got like a few hundred users, and then when I came out with this LinkedIn Ghostwriter, like I didn't get any customers because most of my audience, they're uh, people trying to learn AI, or they're people like you, so they're like on a similar journey as me. Um, but I don't have a massive audience of people trying to like build a personal brand on LinkedIn or to like get customers or like post content on like content creators for LinkedIn or whatever. So even though I do have some, I don't have like tens of thousands of people following me like specifically for that. So when I launch my product to my own audience, I didn't get as much traction. So
I would, I
it
would
really
like
depends.
I would like to interject here. So
Yeah.
I think the issue here is that um, you have an audience, yeah, and all these people they follow you for certain things. They know you for AI, entrepreneurship, maybe, and I guess like that career journey that you're taking. So when you add in a new topic like copywriting with AI with your Ghost app, like
Hmm.
that is not as obvious the connection to your current audience. So what you have to do to connect it to them is to start at a different level of awareness when you speak to them, and it's more like speaking to that audience that you already have, explaining to them why maybe a personal brand is important, so that they can then understand why it is that they might want to use your tool, Ghost, so that they
Yeah.
can use it. But all of
So
us are interested in personal brands. I'm interested in my personal brand. Like
right, right.
I don't. I think everyone wants to have a personal brand, and we can see it's kind of like the future, having a presence on social media around your profession. So I
Right.
think it's a good idea.
So there, well, thanks for saying it's a good idea. There are a couple things. One, it's hard enough to sell your product to someone. And so if you also have to educate them on the problem first before you can even start selling the product to them, now that's a tremendous amount of work. And I think it's a good idea to avoid it when you can. And the way I would think about it is that, okay, let's say I do have, 80,000 people following me on YouTube. I've got 10,000 people following me on LinkedIn. I've got 10,000 people following me on my blog. These are all options. So is so let's say Ghostwriter, for example. I want to launch Ghostwriter to my LinkedIn audience. Most of the people may not be um, like buyers, like ready to buy something like that. And so like let's say maybe like 5% of my audience like ready to buy something like that. Does it make more sense to go after that 5% of my LinkedIn audience, or does it make more sense to just pursue a different marketing channel? Like, does it make more sense to just go find someone who's already gone through the trouble of growing an audience of my ideal customer, and then just doing a partnership deal with them? It's like, hey, can you promote my app like for three LinkedIn posts, or like make a YouTube video about this? Or does it make sense to run ads? So make some organic content and then try to run LinkedIn ads against them, or just to do one-on-one outreach. So I kind of did that with you actually. So I wrote a LinkedIn post for you using Ghost, and then I kind of just kind of made you aware of it. And so these are all options. And of course, if you have an audience, you have another option. But that doesn't mean that's not to say that it's a requirement for getting into the game. Um, and it may not even be an optimal path depending on what you ultimately want to do. So I do think like learning how to do the one-on-one outreach is actually a really good skill set and worth your time, because no matter where you're starting from, you can always do one-on-one outreach. If you have a cell phone, if you have social media accounts, you have access to people and you can DM them and or text them or call them and make them an offer, so you can start collecting data or start getting your first customers.
Yeah, and learning how to speak to one specific person is going to help you speak to many people at once too.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of like it's a good stepping stone to take. And by the way, I used Ghost today to write my LinkedIn posts, and
Okay,
it works really well, I think. I
nice.
see it as a valuable tool, and I want to keep using it. I plugged in one of my already written posts, and it kind of just helped me like iterate on it to make it a little bit better
Nice.
and a little bit different. And I feel like,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it was really good.
Okay, nice. Well, let me know if you run out of your free trial. I'll give you some more credits.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, but I think that's a really interesting topic because it can be kind of confusing when you're creating content or you're trying to build a personal brand and you're trying to anticipate how it would all connect with everything that you're doing. Like I
Right.
want the way I go about it
Yeah.
is I try to think maybe about like three topics that are core to me that aren't going to change, and
Hmm.
then with every offer that I might have or everything that I might do, try to find an angle that it connects to like the three topics that I already talk about.
Yeah.
Um, but like you said, maybe it doesn't connect so clearly. So
Right.
in some instances, I think it does make sense to uh, pay for advertising or have someone else market it for you. And at
Yeah.
that point, you're probably more advanced and understand this entrepreneurship game a lot better. So you're
Yeah.
kind of well equipped for that.
Yeah, so I feel like the two easiest entry points for entrepreneurship are freelancing and content creation. And even if that's not your final state, I think you will learn so much that will serve you very well in the future. Like freelance, it taught me that I'm capable of making money outside a 9 to 5 job. It taught me how to get customers. It taught me how to talk to people, how to do discovery calls, how to manage projects. Content creation has taught me a lot too, how to talk to many people at once, how to write, how to talk, how to edit videos, how to write titles, how to get people's attention, how to make content that's valuable to people. So, and then these skills have helped me tremendously when it came to learning these non-technical skills of sales and marketing, learning how to reach out to people, learning how to craft offers, learning how to write copy, how to write newsletters, because you're fundamentally doing the same thing, but with a slightly different genre or flavor. So you're still writing or you're still talking to people, but so let's take a blog post for example. Like you start a blog, you learn how to write, that sets you up nicely to learn copywriting, where instead of writing educational content, you're writing content with a purpose. Like you're writing content to get someone to do some kind of action. And I would say it's a nice stepping stone. It's like you can start teaching people stuff, and then you can learn how to persuade people of things. And there's so many different things, so many different skills like that if you kind of go down this path of like freelancing or content creation. And it's usually something you can do on the side. So you don't have to take the leap and leave your job and all that kind of stuff to get started with those things. And I think after doing those for a couple of years, you will kind of know, or you'll be in a better position to take that leap if that's something you want to do.
Definitely. And another thing that stands out to me about Ghost is that it's not like uh, it's not so much that it is able to generate posts for you. It's that Shaw is a successful content creator and he applied his standards and his framework for how to write well so that you can use his systems. So it's like you know what goes into copywriting. You know there needs to be a good headline. It needs to sound a certain way. It has to have lists. It has to have a call to action at the end or a question or something. It's like all these things that you're aware of, like you're skilled at. You kind of
Right.
into this.
Yeah, so definitely that portion of it. The highest um, so that's gonna definitely help with like the system prompt tool. You give it like some basic instructions on like how to write LinkedIn posts well and how to format them, some do's and some don'ts, and some things that tend to work really well on LinkedIn and some things that don't. What I feel like is actually the biggest contribution to the quality of a system like that are the examples that you upload to it. And so what I like about Ghost is that I can just upload my examples and it'll do a much better job of like kind of capturing my voice. Or if I'm a complete noob and I've never written a LinkedIn post before, I can literally just go and find creators that I really admire, like maybe if someone likes my LinkedIn post, they can just go steal my content, upload it to Ghost, and start generating posts like that. And then that's going to be like a good way to like bootstrap their thing. Like, uh, and then you can like mix and match too. So if there's like multiple voices that you want to um, emulate, you can upload it to Ghost, and then you can have it generate content like that.
That was a big thing for me also is that when I plugged in my own posts, it told me what my voice is like. It gave me my tags. It told me
Right.
what my style is like. And I wasn't actually so aware. Like I didn't have like single words to describe these thing aspects of my writing style. So
hmm
it's increasing my awareness so that is very beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like it's definitely helpful for me. Like the biggest impact Ghost had for me is like curing my LinkedIn writer's block. Because there were days I would literally spend 1 hour writing a LinkedIn post, and I would be so angry after that because I would post it and it still wouldn't even be that good of a post, but I just wanted to post like once every day because I kind of committed myself to that. It's like I'm going to post every day, even if it sucks or whatever. Um, but with Ghost, I can start with really rough idea, just throw it in there, have it generate something, and then it'll usually spark something. It'll help me get to that final post a little faster. And then if I don't like it, I just hit regenerate a few times, and then maybe I'll like update the input again, and then I'll try something else. And so it like on so before I released it, I had like an internal version of it, like I was just using for myself. And that cut my post writing time down by like 5x. So my worst day, instead of it being like an hour trying to write a post, like on a bad day, it would take me maybe like 15 minutes to write a post. So I think it helped me, and you know, right now I think it's maybe at like 65 users. Um, so we'll see. We'll see if it gets more traction organically.
I'm excited about it. Yeah, I have a similar situation where I have my own like little chat in ChatGPT that I use to help me edit
Yeah.
my posts. It's not nearly as good as yours though.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well, the biggest headache I feel is the like being able to easily plug in and like add and remove in context examples. So that was like the big motivator for me of building the app is like, like I want to be able to quickly try to add one example and remove another example because if it's just in this giant prompt that you have to go into the prompt and, you know, cut it out and then maybe paste some new ones in there. And it's just like just more friction. And I want to have as little friction as possible in the post writing process.
yeah, the context also could get kind of murky too after like a few weeks of using that chat
Yeah,
if you're not even sure if it's using the examples you want it to
right.
use or so. Yeah, I think you've done a really good job with that. Um, I would love to discuss more details about what went into building that, but I think we are coming up on like an hour here, so I think it would be a good time to wrap up the interview. Maybe we could just talk about any closing words, any words of advice you'd like to give to your past self, and
Yeah.
also what you're working on now, where people can find you, and how they can follow you.
Yeah, so I feel like for anyone that maybe they're in a technical role and in the back of their mind they feel like they want to go down the entrepreneurial journey, they want to work for themselves one day, the best advice I can give is just to start now. And that doesn't mean quitting your job. That means like that can be a very small step toward this bigger vision, this bigger goal that you have. So it could be as simple as, you know what, Saturday morning, I'm going to spend 15 minutes just kind of brainstorming what side hustle I can start doing. You're not starting a new side hustle, you're just thinking about what side hustle would I enjoy? Would I enjoy freelancing? Would I enjoy content creation? Or would I enjoy starting to do like the indie hacker thing and just building little SaaS applications and trying to launch. So I would just do that. You know what I mean? Just start super small, but start now. And it doesn't have to be this huge commitment. It can be as small as like 15 minutes a week or an hour a week. And then the more you do it, the more this is going to grow. And but like the month before I left my role at Toyota, I was working 20 hours a week on my side hustles. And so you're probably not gonna start there, but uh, it just start very small, start very simple, but start as soon as possible. That's the best advice I can give you. it just takes a long time for things to develop, for you to learn these skills. So you want to start as early as possible. But I'll say like the main thing I'm focused on, at least these days and right now, is AI education. And so I would say the best way to keep up with me is my YouTube channel. Got like, hundreds of videos on AI, and I also post videos about my journey, which is how Warren found me. So if you're curious about learning AI, turning your ideas into real world applications, that's probably the best place.
Thank you so much, Shaw. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Warren. Thanks for having me on.